Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Good evening and welcome once again to another Healing Moments. We have a special program for you this evening and I'm so excited to share it with you. This evening, you get to give your feedback on our program. Yes, you do. And as usual, we have the spiritual aspect of our program, the mental health aspect, and the healing aspect, the physical side. But before we go any further, let's hear from Pastor Lucas while he gives us a word of prayer and get into the spiritual side of our program.
Good evening to everybody. Let us all pray at this time. Our Father in heaven, it's a delightful privilege to be here this evening to share with our guests. We pray, Lord, that your Spirit will be with us in a special way as we discuss and share on this topic tonight, which is quite important to us. Bless all who are involved, those who are logging on, and may we have informative and healing time tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Yes, for the devotional thought, I just want to share with us, the Lord hears me as a topic. It's a concern for everybody. Yes, we pray, but oftentimes a lot of people query whether God hears them or not. Psalms 18:6 is the text for it. In my distress, I called upon the Lord and cried out to my God. He heard my voice from his temple, and my cry came before him, even to his ears. Today's verse tells us that God is with us and listens to a cry, even if sometimes we feel contrary. Yes, there are times we feel contrary. We the feeling goes against whatever else you may have heard or known. It is comforting to know that in the midst of troubles, trials, and difficulties, the Lord hears our voice and that our clamor reaches his ears. In ancient Persia, during the reign of Ahasuerus, there was a law that sentenced to death whoever entered the inner court to see the king without being called. Esther 4:11. It must not have been a safety measure, since the queen herself was subject to the same law, as shown in Esther's story. What a huge contrast between the authoritarian rule and the attitude of the King of the universe. Jesus patiently waits for us at the door. He waits for us to open it, to welcome him in, and to talk and dine with him. Revelation 3:20. He longs for our company so much that even before we cry to him, he's ready to respond. Isaiah 65:24. Yes, we may suffer some harsh afflictions, but the Lord is willing to hear our voice, to come to our rescue, and to be with us even in the bleakest of moments. Another lesson which can be drawn from today's verse is the fact that God hears us from his temple. Of course, God is omnipresent and almighty and will hear us wherever we are, but the fact that the temple is mentioned specifically reminds us that it is a blessing to be able to invoke God's name in the temple, at church, and in the congregation of believers. Amanda Nicholson from the University College of London, UCL, carried out a study which was published in the scientific magazine Social Science and Medicine, Volume 69, 2009, pages 519 to 528, where she analyzed the data of about 40,000 subjects from 22 European countries, half of which were men and half were women. Among the men who responded, those who did not attend religious services were almost twice as likely to describe their health as poor compared to those who attended church at least once a week. Similar, but somewhat lower results were seen in women. It seems obvious that both spirituality and health benefit from our meeting with God in church. Today, spend time in prayer with the full certainty that God hears you. Also, try to attend church to worship God in the company of believers. You will notice surprising results. Indeed, God hears us. And that I know, I've heard from people, they wonder when after they've prayed, did God really hear me? And people question that because sometimes the answer they're looking for at that particular time doesn't come. But I would say to people, God's timetable is pretty much described in Galatians. In the fullness of time, that's God's timetable. We should not set a timetable for God. God has the timetable that fits our situation. It looks hopeless. We feel in despair. We don't know what to do. We don't know what to turn. Nobody can give us an adequate answer. Everything we've tried has failed. God hears us. Let us remember to call upon his name. Thank you.
Isn't it wonderful that God has a timetable that fits our situation? I love what you said, Pastor, when you said that through anything, God hears our prayer. And amen to that. Now we go into the mental health aspect of our segment by Sister Sherry Sobers. Let's hear from you, Sister Sherry.
Thank you so much, Sister Kathy, and good evening to everyone. I echo your sentiments when you say, Pastor Lucas, in the fullness of time is God's timetable. That's all we need to know. So for the last few weeks, we have been looking at building resilience in adversity. And if there is anything you want you to get from this, it's today. So if you are here for the first time, you are here for the right time, in the fullness of time. And this evening, I'm going to share with you 9 pointers on how we can build resilience in this COVID-19 pandemic or any other massive, major situation in our lives. So, number 1, be proactive. Now, while it is important to own and accept your emotions during hard times, it's also equally as important to foster self-discovery. Ask yourself, what can I do about the problem in my life? Simply put, start making a plan. Be proactive and not reactive. If the problem is too big to tackle, break it down into small, manageable pieces. For example, and I am sure that some of you may have been in a situation like this, or you may know someone in a situation like this. You may have been laid off at work. You may not be able to do anything about it, for sure, because of the pandemic. But you can start to spend each day 1 hour developing your top strengths or working on your resume. Taking the initiative that is going to remind you that you can muster the motivation and purpose even during stressful periods, increasing the likelihood that you will rise during the painful times after the painful times. So number 1, be proactive. Number 2, and this is really, really important, find your purpose through helping others. I've often heard that it's really, really important to be able to help someone along the way, and you'll be surprised at how that can help you. Now, whether you volunteer, even in COVID times, we know the limitations of volunteering, or simply support a friend in their own time of need, you can garner that sense of purpose, that kind of self-worth, connecting with people and tangibly helping them. And in your way, you help yourself as well. All of this can empower you to grow in resilience. Find your purpose through helping others. Number 3, move towards your goals. We all have goals. We all have things that we want to achieve. Develop realistic goals. We may have heard of the acronym SMART goals. Develop goals and do something regularly to make these goals happen. Even if it seems like a small accomplishment, small steps that enables you to move forward to the things that you really want to accomplish. Instead of focusing on the things that are not achievable, ask yourself, what is one thing that I can do today to accomplish that task to get me closer to my goal? For example, you may be struggling with your weight. Make a small step, for example, by reducing your sugar by 1 cup of tea without sugar. That is one small step. So number 3, move towards your goals. Number 2, find your purpose through helping others. And number 1, be proactive. Number 4, see how quickly I'm going through them? Look for opportunities for self-discovery through some introspection. We grow in times of hardships. Relationships are strengthened. Individuals have a greater sense of strength even while feeling vulnerable. That can increase your sense of self-worth and heighten your appreciation for life. Oh my, when we look around, even in difficult times, there are so many things we can appreciate about life. Take those opportunities to do some introspection and self-discovery. Number 5, embrace healthy thoughts by keeping things in perspective. How you can think obviously affects how you feel and how resilient you are when you are able to go through these obstacles. In your quiet moments of this self-discovery, try to identify areas of irrational thinking. For example, things happen, but sometimes we tend to catastrophize things or assume that the world is out to get you, and adopt a more balanced and realistic thinking pattern. Instead of being irrational, the world is not out to get you. Think realistically. Things are happening. That requires a lot of practice and a lot of self-talk, though. And if you feel overwhelmed by a challenge, remind yourself that whatever has happened to you is not an indicator of how your future is going to be. Understand this. Things happen in the present. That does not dictate your future, and that is very important. So number 5, embrace healthy thoughts by keeping things in perspective. Number 6, accept change. Accept that change is a part of life. Certain goals or ideals may no longer be possible as a result of adverse situations in your life. Accept the circumstances that cannot be changed and focus on the circumstances that you can alter. So number 6, accept change. Number 7, maintain a hopeful outlook. Be positive. We have been saying that in all our sessions. Be positive. We know that it is hard to be positive when life looks like you make 1 step forward and then you have 2 steps backwards. But an optimistic outlook empowers you to expect that when good things happen to you, they will. Bad things will also happen. Try to visualize what you want rather than worrying about what you can fear, what cannot happen. Along the way, know all the subtle ways in which you can feel better as you deal with the situation. Maintain a hopeful outlook. That is very important. Very important, number 7. Number 8, and we have one more. Learn from your past. Now, it is so important that we understand the importance of the past as it affects the present, and it can affect the future. By looking back at who or what was helpful in previous times of distress, we may discover how we can respond effectively to new difficult situations. Remind yourself of where you've been, what has happened in the past. You can find strength from it, and you can learn from those experiences. And number 9, as we realize that all of these things may help, but sometimes we may need an outside person, a trained professional, to help you. seek that professional help. Get the help when it is that you need it. Know when you need to get help. That is also part of building your resilience. And finally, I like to give a quote. So my quote for this evening is this: it's your reaction to adversity, not adversity itself, that determines how your life story will develop. Thank you very much, and we'll talk later in the show. Yeah.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care. Yeah.
Thank you and welcome back to Healing Moments. Sister Sherry, I love those 9 steps and I love them so much. I'm going to repeat them at the end of the program for you. Remember, after Dr. Dupree comes on with the health aspect of our program, you, the attendees, have your opportunity to tell us what you think about our program. Yes, it is that time of the month when you get to give your feedback. One, about how we have handled the program throughout the month, what you would like to see, even though we've had some topics, what you would like to see coming up in the program, and what you think we can do to improve this program. Also, you can ask our 3 panelists your questions based on today's program. So get your questions ready, get those comments ready. But first, let us hear from Dr. Dupree from our health aspect.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back. I hope you can hear me. Sometimes this phone really gives a lot of problems. But I thank you for being back with us. And this is our last session on resilience, as you've heard. And I'm going to give you 8 points on how you can have a resilient body. This is Sherry gave you 9. I think I will come up short. So you want to have a resilient body, a resilient brain, resilient mind. Here are some of the things you can do. First of all, food. Food is probably the most important thing that people think about all day. Even while at work, some people think of lunchtime and then they think of dinner. And when you're going out with someone, you just met someone, you say, let's meet for an ice cream. Shall we talk while we have a drink, etc. Food and drink, those are the most important things. So one of the ways you can be resilient physically is by paying attention to your diet, to the things that you eat. Many health associations, including the American Health Association, and also in Barbados, it is recommended that you have 5 servings, 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables, 5 to 11 servings of carbohydrates, very, very little fat, and smaller servings of protein. But I don't want to talk about how much protein and how much fat and how much carbs you should have. I want to talk to you about making sure that you get your 5 to 9 servings of fruits and vegetables. You want to have a diet that's low in sodium or salt and high enough in potassium. So unless you have kidney disease, you need to take in a lot of fruits and vegetables, which will give you the potassium that you need. And with the low sodium, will control your blood pressure, help you to control your blood pressure, even without all of those medications. Also, if we learn to adjust our servings to more fruits and vegetables and less carbs, we're likely to have better weight control. So food is one of the most important things, and learning to eat right, improving your diet or our diets as we go along is one way to make our bodies resilient, in that when we are struck by disease, our immune systems will be strong enough to recover from infection. And if by chance we have to have anything like surgery, our bodies will be better equipped at healing. Right. So also, another important point is that we should exercise. You know that exercise increases physical flexibility. And it also helps with clear thinking, weight loss, etc., and managing many chronic illnesses. The recommendation for exercise is 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week, which comes to about, if you do it 5 times a day, 5 times a week, that would be 5 half hours per week of moderate exercise. If you're going to do it 7 days per week, then probably 20 to 25 minutes will do of moderate exercise. A walk, a brisk walk, even 1 mile on a flat daily is enough for moderate exercise. And also do a bit of weight training. Give your muscles some resistance. So lift some light weights, and you can do that 2 or 3 times a week to strengthen those muscles and those joints. Also, water. We must have adequate water. If you want to know how much water you should drink, you take your weight, divide by 2, and that number in ounces of water is what you should drink. Your normal glass probably holds about 8 ounces, 7 to 8 ounces. So that will work out to be about 8 to 10 glasses of water, depending on your weight and height, and also your amount of physical activity. If you're out working in the sun, then obviously you're going to need more water. Another way our bodies can be resilient is to breathe deeply of fresh air. And if we exercise enough, then there'll be no excuse for not breathing deeply, because once you're exercising, your respiratory rate increases, and so you're able to take air deep down into your lungs. We know that most of us are in some sort of lockdown situation, but that doesn't mean you should keep all the doors and windows closed and stay inside. Open the windows and let some fresh air come in, unless you live in the cold north and you can't open the windows too much. Also, we should get some sunshine. Again, I've always stressed, and from the beginning of the pandemic, that we need to come outside and get some sunlight. Being inside doesn't mean you have to be indoors. As our government says, you should stay within your curtilage. So you can come out in your yard and sunbathe, lie on your whatever and sunbathe, even if you can't go to the beach. So those of you who are at home, you should be getting more sun than I am getting, because I'm mostly in the office, although I try to go out during the day and get some sun. So always get some sunshine. Rest, get adequate rest. As adults, we should have at least 6 hours sleep, and young people, 8 hours, children, 10 hours. So getting adequate sleep not only helps your brain to recover, but as well helps your brain to sorry, the words are failing me. Helps your brain to make the right chemicals while you are asleep, that right mixture of chemicals. that is adequate to renew your brain activity. And getting adequate sleep also helps in managing chronic diseases, especially diabetes. Because the more you're awake, the more cortisol your body releases, the higher your blood sugar is. It's harder to control your blood sugar. Also, we should learn to trust in God. If we haven't learned to trust in God yet, we need to try harder to spend more time to develop a closer relationship with God. Have I said all eight? The last one is being moderate. In everything we do, we should be moderate. We should abstain from things that are bad for our bodies, and things that are good for our bodies, we should use moderately. So I've covered nutrition, exercise, water, sunlight, moderation, air, rest, and trusting God. So those are the 8 tools that you should put into action to have a more resilient body, a resilient mind. See you next month. I'm sure the host will tell you what the topic for next month will be. Looking forward to seeing you again.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. Thank you so much, Dr. Dupree. Now is my favorite time of this show, question and answer segment, where you, the panelists, get to ask your questions. And like I said, it's the last in the segment for resilience. So we want you to ask your questions so that the panelists can answer. We will only know how we can improve when you give us your feedback. So let's hear from you guys. Okay, and we have one question in the question and answer segment so far, and it says, how much almonds should you eat per day? How much almonds should you eat per day?
Sorry. The recommendation for nuts is to eat a handful of nuts, but I guess it also depends on how much your diet depends on nuts. If you are getting most of your proteins from nuts, I guess you can eat a bit more, but like a palm full of almonds is fine.
Okay.
I tend to eat a handful of cashew, a handful of peanuts, a handful of almonds, a handful of pistachios, a handful of everything. But not recommended that you eat too much nuts, because then your lipids are going to be higher. And if you're trying to lose weight, then remember it is a source of fat as well as protein.
Okay. You mentioned exercise, Dr. Dupree, but I used to wear what we call one of those exercise watches. And I remember doing my work, it always recorded the amount of steps that I took. And I always tried to go for about 10,000 steps.
10,000, yeah.
Yes. So what is the difference between, like I say, in that situation, it recorded the steps, but is there a difference between the steps for work and actual exercise?
Right. What I try to do when I'm at my desk, as I am now, is that if I'm writing up reports, for example, I finish 3, I take them to the secretary for typing, and they sometimes ask, why don't you just bring a whole heap? And I said, no, because I have to get up and move about. So yes, that's exercise. But it may not be adequate if most of the steps that you are doing are like your usual steps. You need a brisk walk, something that's going to increase your pulse rate. And I had given you the calculation some time ago. I can't well remember what it is now. But there's a target heart rate that you should aim at when you're doing your exercise. So it's not just steps. If nothing happens to your pulse or your heart rate, then it's not adequate.
Okay, I have another question coming for you. And it asks, what is the link between nutrition and immunity?
Okay, well.
And there's a two-part question.
Oh, sorry.
And it also says, How can these assist us during the current lockdown?
Right. Suspect I know who asked that question. Yes. Nutrition and immunity. One of the a few of the things that we are granted during from our diet, apart from the proteins, the carbohydrates, the large nutrients, the macronutrients, there are a number of micronutrients which are very essential for immunity. So we have the vitamins, for example. Vitamin C is necessary in helping healing. Vitamin K is important for blood clotting. We have other micronutrients like zinc, for example, zinc and manganese and copper. All of those are found in small quantities in cells and assist cells with their metabolic processes. So nutrition, especially that is adequate in micronutrients, is important in helping to build our immunity. The thing is to make sure that we have enough of those things, because sometimes, especially if we're eating a lot of refined foods, sometimes they're added, but many times they are deficient in those micronutrients.
Can I just add to?
Yes, and somebody asked how it was important during the COVID-19 immunity, the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so once a virus enters your system, your body sees it as foreign. It's called an antigen then, and you have so it stimulates helper cells, helper T cells that are going to act on the phagocytic white cells, the neutrophils, for example, that are going to engulf your bacteria or viruses or anything foreign, present them to the cells that produce the antibodies. So there are killer cells that can kill the virus. As well, the helper cells activate the plasma cells to produce antibodies that can bind to the antigen and neutralize it. So if your immune system is poor, then you have lazy white cells, lazy leukocytes, we call them. So especially in chronic diseases like diabetes, the leukocytes become very lazy and cannot carry out their phagocytic activity, being able to eat up the foreign antigens and produce the right chemicals when they engulf them into the little vacuoles to kill them. So it's important to maintain our immunity so that our white cells can be efficient in attacking our antigens. And remember that also there are other things that can depress your immune system. So even your mental state, like depression, can cause your immune system to become weaker.
Can I jump in here, Doc?
Sure.
You know, and I'm not laughing, but it's perfect what you ended with that I want to carry on with in terms of what has been happening recently. You know, we've talked this month so much about resilience and adversity. One thing that has raised many red flags and have really caused me to be very careful and also very pensive is the emotional and the mental health of our young people. You know, I find that people are becoming very lonely. This time, the lockdown is different than the first time. We've seen a lot of the aspects of mental health that we really don't want to see as a country. And I think that even as I gave the pointers this evening, you know, there may be persons who will listen and say, oh, she's just saying that. But I want people to hear this and to believe when I say, when you stop and you pause and you really think of the situation that you are in and you try these pointers, you try focusing on the positive. You try focusing on the things in your life that are good. You try to help someone, even with the limitations of COVID-19, and you try to you start to think different. You start to change. You reframe how you think. Therefore, you reframe your behavior. You look for opportunities. You don't sit and you worry about, oh gosh, I don't have this, I don't have that. You focus on what you have. We can't express how important it is for us to focus on what we have within us, what we have around us, all the material things, and not focus on what we do not have. Today, 2021 is a pandemic. Next year, it may be something else. And the next 5-10 years, it may be something else. Let's try, so important. As we focus on the physical, it is so important. We could have a perfectly healthy body, but if we don't have a healthy mind to go along with that body, we are still in trouble, which is why it is so important. Healthy body, healthy mind, healthy being.
Yes.
I would like to get in here too,
And
just
I
to add
have
this spiritual component to it.
backing on that, Sister Sobers. As you know, or as most people know, all the suicides have to end up coming to me in a way. I have to deal with all of them. And I can tell you for sure that there has been an increase since the pandemic began. And all of them, of course, do not make the news. So the hangings, especially the young people who hang themselves, but we don't hear of all the drug overdoses and of all the drinking of poisons, etc. We don't hear all of that.
Yeah.
So yes, it is a serious thing that mental health is a part of our health that we should not neglect.
Yeah, and how does the spiritual health impacts upon this? How do we relate all of these things? That's one area that I know that sometimes people do not get. The particular area that I focused on was calling upon the Lord, and He will hear us. Now, the Bible tells us that that it equates health and spirituality. All right. Now, if our health is not good, is not what it should be, it affects our faith.
Yes.
When our health is not what it should be, we get sick. And when we get sick, we tend to get self-centered. We worry about the pain, we worry about this, we worry about that. And in worrying, God doesn't come into the picture. God, we do not think about any God. As a matter of fact, we and this is why worry is a block. So our physical health, nutrition, and those things are important, right? A starving person will think about one thing only. I'm starving. I want something to eat. Now, when those things are in place, right, they facilitate our calling on God, one. They also facilitate our hearing God. So the physical health and the spiritual is there. Now, it requires discipline to carry out, a disciplined mind to carry out what Shari was saying earlier. Those things require discipline. And again, discipline or indiscipline is connected to our physical health. If we are stressed out and whatever else, discipline, we don't get to do that discipline. Somebody got to put us through it because we don't feel like doing it. And therefore we don't do it. Okay? And so those things that are required in terms of the human mind, when the mind is in confusion, is in whatever else, it cannot process a lot of stuff. So when the Bible says, I wish above all things that you may prosper and be in health, even as your soul prospers, the three come together. The three come together. Each one can impact upon the other. If you're not well, some chances are, and you're distressed and whatever else. Hearing God's voice is a difficulty. Matter of fact, we get vexed with God because we figure God should not let this happen to me.
We say, God,
So
why me?
yes, why God, why you, what if you God, why you let this happen to me? So we now, rather than accessing God through faith, we begin to quarrel, which leads to forgetting about God and whatever. It's just God, but this is not working and whatever. So our faith, our physical health, our mental health, they work together. That's what I would say.
Thank you so much. We have two final questions coming to you guys. And the question is from one person, but it's a two-part question and it reads, how do you get past a plateau when losing weight? And does age play a role in this?
Well, I'm one of those people who believe what some other people believe, that weight gain goes with age and that you should put on some weight with age. It's actually helpful. If you generally, most of us when we were growing up would probably be called mexo because we were thin and tall, like some of us who were tall. But once we get to a particular age, so say we get into our 40s, for example, you tend to round up a bit and put on a bit of weight. And there is nothing wrong with that. It's actually healthy. And you don't get to old age. If you're in your 50s and 60s and you still look the same way you looked when you were a teenager, you may be strong, but I don't think it's particularly pretty to look, being blunt. But in terms of obesity and plateauing, the problem with obese people and people who try to lose weight is that they try to give themselves a time goal. Say, I need to lose all this weight in 6 months, or I need to lose all this weight in 1 year. Nobody puts on extra weight in a short time, in as short a time as we want to put off the weight. And so it calls for an entire lifestyle change. The battery's not there. It calls for an entire lifestyle change. Something that whatever it is that you decide to do to lose weight, it has to be something that you can maintain for the rest of your life. Unless you just want to get a part in a movie and you want to lose 20 pounds, then that's a different story. Or you want to fit into a particular choice. That's different. But if weight has always been a problem and you want to lose weight, then it calls for a lifestyle change that can be maintained for the rest of your life. And you may never go back to what you were when you were a teenager. And I don't think you really do want to go back there. But you want to work with your nutritionist to get back to your ideal weight. So I'm not sure if that's where you would go with.
As a woman in her 40s, Dr. Dupree, you don't know how glad I am to hear you say that. But thank you. It has been a pleasure having you guys here with us this evening. I want to give a brief recap of some of the pointers that Sister Sherry shared and Sister Dupree. And the tips to help COVID times by Sister Sherry are: be proactive, find your purpose through helping others, develop goals, look for opportunity, keep things in perspective, accept change, maintain a positive outlook, seek help, professional help, and learn from your past. Dr. Dupree, her tips are: improve your diet by exercise, do a little bit of weight training, drink plenty of water, get plenty of sunlight, rest, be moderate, and my favorite, trust in God. Now, this is the last of our 3 parts. resilience in adversity for the month. But next week, Thursday, remember that starts a new month and a new topic. And the topic for next month is interpersonal relationship. So
Yay.
I look forward to seeing you again next Thursday at 6 p.m. for Healing Moments. Remember, tell a friend, tell someone that Healing Moments is on, and let's have a healing moment together. Until then, see you guys.
Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be healthy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment every day. Take a moment for your body. Take a moment for your mind. Take a moment for your spirit. Take a moment to be well. Take a moment to be happy. Take a moment when you pray. Take a moment for worship. Take a moment to show you care. Take a moment to show you care. Just to show how much you care.